I never thought moving into a perfect neighborhood would change my life forever. At first, it looked like a dream. Clean streets, trim lawns, smiling neighbors. It was everything my wife and I wanted when we decided to start fresh after years of renting small apartments. We'd saved for nearly a decade to buy that house. The moment we drove to the front gates, I felt proud. The sign said Maple Grove Estates, and under it, the words were perfection lives. At that time, I didn't realize how little those words were, or how dangerous. My wife, Claire, couldn't stop smiling. She loved the symmetry, the flowers, the identical mailboxes. To her, it meant stability, community, safety. To me, it felt a bit too polished, but I brushed it off. We'd worked too hard to see flaws in our dream. Our daughter, Mia, was just 10 then. She ran across the front yard, excited to have space to play. I promised her we'd build a little swing under the old maple tree near the porch. That promise would become the start of everything that went wrong. The first week was calm. People waved politely when we passed, but no one really talked. It was the kind of place where everyone smiled, but those smiles didn't reach their eyes. I told myself it was just because we were new. Then came her, the HOA president, Mrs. Eleanor Ward. If you've ever met someone who thinks they were born to be in charge of everyone else's life, that was Eleanor. Perfect posture, pearl earrings, clipboard always in hand. Even her dog walked in a straight line beside her. She showed up the second day after we moved in, welcoming us with a folder full of community guidelines. It was thicker than some novels I've read. I didn't think much of it until she started pointing things out about our property. The trash bins, she said, must be kept on the left side, not the right. The curtains in the front window must be white or beige. The mailbox, well, that color isn't approved by the board. I laughed politely and promised to check the details later. But as she left, she said something that stayed in my head. We have rules for a reason, Mr. Reed. Harmony doesn't happen by accident. It sounded harmless then, almost reasonable. But soon I'd learned that in this neighborhood, harmony meant obedience. A few days later, Mia reminded me of my promise. I hung the swing myself, a simple wooden seat and rope under the maple tree. When she laughed while swinging, I thought, this is what we worked for. The next morning, there was an envelope taped to our door. Violation notice number 001. Unauthorized front yard structure. Remove within 48 hours or face fine. I actually laughed at first. I thought it had to be a joke. But when I called the number on the paper, Eleanor herself answered. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. Yes, Mr. Reed. The HOA requires prior approval for all exterior additions. It's a child swing, I said. It's not even attached to the house. Exactly, she replied. That makes it an external structure. The rule is clear. I tried reasoning with her, but she cut me off. We all follow the same standards here. If I let you keep that swing, everyone will want exceptions. Then Maple Grove wouldn't be Maple Grove anymore, would it? She ended the call before I could respond. That night, I sat on the porch, looking at the swing swaying in the breeze. Mia had decorated it with little ribbons. Claire said maybe we should just take it down to avoid trouble, but something in me refused. We'd done nothing wrong. The following day, I went to the HOA meeting, hoping to talk like adults. The clubhouse smelled of lemon polish and control. 5 board members sat behind a long table, Eleanor in the center, like a judge. When I brought up the swing, she smiled in a way that wasn't friendly. Rules are rules, she said. We can't have personal projects disrupting the visual unity of the neighborhood. I looked around the room. A few neighbors avoided my eyes. One man muttered, "It's just a swing," but he quickly went silent when she glanced his way. That's when I realized fear ruled this place more than fairness did. I left the meeting angry, but determined. I wasn't taking down my daughter's swing. Not for her, not for anyone. The next morning, another notice appeared, this time a fine of $500. My savings weren't huge. That was grocery money for the month. Claire was upset. "Please, just take it down," she said. But I couldn't. I felt like if I gave in now, I'd never stop giving in. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of hammering. I ran outside. The swing was gone. The ropes were cut. The seat was lying broken on the lawn. And standing on the sidewalk were two men in reflective vests, shrugging when I asked who sent them. Orders from the HOA. One said, "We're just following instructions." Mia cried that evening, asking why someone would destroy her swing. I told her I'd fix it, but deep down, something snapped in me. It wasn't just about a swing anymore. It was about control, about how far one person could go to make others bow down. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let Eleanor run my life. After that day, nothing felt the same. I started noticing things, small, strange things. My mailbox flag would be bent one morning. My trash bins moved a few inches out of place. Tire marks across my driveway. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe kids playing around, or wind, or delivery drivers. But when I got another envelope taped to the door, I knew it wasn't random. Violation notice number 002. Unapproved driveway oil stains. $250 fine. Oil stains. My car was 10 years old. A few drops on the concrete. And now it was a violation? I called Eleanor again. "You're really finding me for that?" Her tone was sweet, fake sweet. "We just want to maintain a certain standard, Mr. Reed. You'll understand once you've lived here longer." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about cleanliness. It was about power. She wanted control, and the HOA gave her the perfect tool for it. Every few days, new letters arrived. One for untrimmed grass. One for unsightly garden hose visible from the street. Even one for improper window blinds, because Claire had hung floral curtains in Mia's room. I felt like I was being watched. Constantly. Claire tried to keep the peace. "Please, just let it go. We can't fight everyone." But I couldn't. Every rule felt like another chain. Every fine felt like a message. Obey, or we'll make you regret it. Then came the real blow, a certified letter. Thick envelope. I opened it, and my hand started shaking. Notice of lien. They were placing a lien on my house, over unpaid fines. I tried to appeal some of them, thinking I'd get a fair hearing, but of course the appeal board was just the same group of people who made the rules. Eleanor sat right in the middle. They wanted nearly $3,000. For nothing. Claire cried that night. She begged me to just pay it off and move away. But I told her, no. If I give in, she wins. And she'll do it to the next person, too. That night, I stayed up late on the porch, watching the neighborhood. Every light seemed to be watching back. That's when I noticed a car, a dark sedan, slowly driving past our house. It didn't stop. It didn't speed up. Just rolled by. The next night, it came again. Same car. Same slow roll. I walked out onto the lawn, pretending to check the mailbox. The car sped up and disappeared. It was subtle intimidation, but it worked. Claire started sleeping with the bedroom light on. Mia didn't want to go outside anymore. I started recording everything. Every noise, every shadow, every car that passed after midnight. I bought a cheap camera and set it near the porch light. A week later, I caught something. 2:37 a.m., a figure walking across my lawn. A woman in a long coat. She bent near my trash cans, then walked away. Next morning, another violation notice. Trash bins not properly secured. $150 fine. I compared the timestamps. The moment the notice was documented was the same time I saw her near the cans. It was Eleanor. That was it. I'd had enough. I printed the footage and brought it to the next HOA meeting. My heart was pounding, but I didn't care anymore. When I walked in, every seat turned toward me. Eleanor was sitting in the center again, clipboard in hand. I slammed the folder down in front of her. "Here," I said, "this is your definition of harmony?" The room went silent. I opened the folder, played the video on my phone. You could clearly see her figure, her coat, her walk. The same pearl earrings glinting in the porch light. She froze. For the first time, that perfect smile slipped, but she recovered fast. "That could be anyone," she said calmly. "You're making serious accusations, Mr. Reed." I stared at her. "It's you?" "I know it. and everyone here knows it too." She laughed, light and artificial. "You should be careful, or we might have to report you for harassment." That word hit me. Harassment. That's what she called it, after all she'd done. I looked around, hoping someone would speak up, but no one did. They just stared at their hands, at the floor, anywhere but me. I walked out before I could explode. That night, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tight my hands hurt. I didn't know what to do next, move out, fight back, or lose everything trying. But then something happened that changed everything. The next morning, I found an envelope on the ground. No name, no return address. Just one sentence inside, handwritten. "You're not the only one she's hurt." When I read that note, "You're not the only one she's hurt," my stomach dropped. I looked around, half expecting someone to be watching me. But the street was empty, still quiet. I kept the note in my pocket all day. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who wrote it? What did they mean? That night, I went out for a walk after dinner. The air was cool, and the neighborhood was still lit with those perfect garden lights that made everything look peaceful. But I knew better now. As I turned the corner near the park, an older man was sitting on a bench, cigarette glowing between his fingers. He looked up and said, "You're Reed, right? Lot 28. I nodded cautiously. He gave a dry laugh. "Thought so. You're the new one Eleanor's after." I stopped walking. "You left me that note?" He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded once. "Yeah, name's Dennis. Used to live right across from her." He took another drag from his cigarette and sighed. "She did the same thing to me, and to others before me. She's been running this HOA like her personal kingdom for years." I sat beside him, trying to keep my voice calm. "What did she do to you?" He stared into the dark. "Fines, threats, fake complaints, you name it. I tried to fight her too. Took her to court once. Lost everything. Had to sell my house. But I've got proof she's been scamming the homeowners. Thousands of dollars in maintenance fees that never went anywhere." I frowned. "Scamming? You mean she's stealing money?" He nodded slowly. "I think so. But she's careful. She's got half the board in her pocket. People are scared to talk. She ruined a family last year. The Turners. Their kid had an accident. They fell behind on HOA fees. She had their property seized and auctioned off. Claimed it was within policy. I felt sick hearing it. This wasn't just pettiness. It was cruelty. Calculated, quiet cruelty. Dennis leaned closer. "You want to stop her? You'll need to hit her where it hurts. Get the books. The finances. That's where the truth is." He gave me a small USB drive. Everything I could say before I left. It's not much, but it's a start. Then he stood up and walked away, fading into the dark like he'd been waiting years to pass the torch. When I got home, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Inside were folders full of scanned documents, HOA meeting minutes, invoices, receipts. Some were real, but others looked wrong. The same companies appearing again and again. Greenleaf Maintenance, Northview Landscaping, Premier Legal Services. I searched each one. Nothing. No real listings. No phone numbers. No addresses. Fake companies. It hit me like a brick. She was funneling HOA money into ghost accounts. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my heart race. I had proof, real proof. But if I wasn't careful, she'd destroy me before I could use it. Next morning, I went to the county records office. I asked about public filings for the HOA. The clerk was friendly until I said the name of our association. Then her tone changed. "You're from Pine Meadows Estates, right?" She said quietly. "You're not the first person to ask about them." She turned her screen toward me. "But a lot of the records are sealed." "Sealed?" I repeated. "Why?" She hesitated. "At the request of the HOA's legal counsel. Happens sometimes if there's pending litigation." I thanked her and left, but the unease followed me all the way home. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed Eleanor standing on the sidewalk, talking to someone in a black SUV. The man wore a suit. She looked over, saw me, and smiled. That same cold, perfect smile. That evening, Another letter was on my door. Notice of nuisance behavior. Excessive noise and late-night activity. Noise? I laughed out loud. I hadn't even left the house after 10. It was clear now. She knew I was digging. The next few days were chaos. More letters. More intimidation. One morning, my car tires were slashed. The police came, but all they did was take a report. Eleanor even came outside pretending to check on me. "Oh my goodness, that's terrible," she said, voice dripping with fake concern. "You know, this kind of thing happens when there's tension in the neighborhood." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just looked her dead in the eye and said, "You can't keep this up forever." She smiled. "We'll see." That night, I drove out of town to meet Dennis again. We sat in his small apartment surrounded by boxes and old papers. He told me something I'll never forget. "She's not doing it alone," he said. "Her brother's a contractor, runs a company under a different name. They've been faking maintenance contracts and splitting the money." I asked, "Can we prove it?" He sighed. "Maybe, but you'll need access to her home computer. That's where she keeps the originals. Everything goes through her personal email before it's filed." I sat back, realizing what that meant. To expose her, I'd have to go inside her house. It sounded impossible, but I had one small advantage. Eleanor trusted appearances more than people, and she loved showing off. I started going to meetings again, pretending to cooperate, pretending to make peace. I even brought homemade cookies once, just to make it look like I'd moved on. Weeks passed. Slowly, she dropped her guard. Then one evening, she invited me and Claire over for the HOA's annual appreciation dinner. I could tell she thought she'd won, that I'd finally submitted, but I hadn't. That dinner was going to change everything. The night of the dinner, Claire was nervous. She'd picked out a light blue dress, her hands trembling as she fixed her hair in the mirror. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "After everything she's done?" I smiled, though inside I was just as tense. "We'll be fine. Just play along." We walked to Eleanor's house just a few streets over. From the outside, it looked like something out of a magazine. Trimmed hedges, perfect lighting, American flags swaying gently by the porch. But to me, it felt like walking straight into the lion's den. Eleanor opened the door with that same polished grace. "Welcome. I'm so glad you could make it." Inside, the place smelled like expensive candles and power. The table was set for 8, with gold-trimmed plates and wine glasses that sparkled under chandelier. Her husband, Richard, greeted us, quiet man, polite but distant. He looked tired, the kind of tired that doesn't come from work, but from living next to someone like her. The dinner started normal enough. Small talk, compliment about the food, fake laughter. I played my part, smiling, nodding, listening. But I couldn't stop watching Eleanor. The way she controlled every detail, from the seating to the conversation. She liked power, and she liked everyone to know she had it. Halfway through dinner, she raised her glass. "To our beautiful community," she said, "where everyone learns to fit in sooner or later." Everyone laughed politely. Everyone except me. After dessert, she gave us a tour of her house, really just an excuse to show off her perfectly arranged office. My heart pounded when I saw it. A sleek white desk with her laptop still open, papers spread neatly beside it. She turned her back for a moment to refill glasses. I slipped a small USB drive, the same one Dennis had given me, into the side of her laptop. It started copying files automatically. I smiled, pretending to admire a painting while watching the progress bar crawl forward in the reflection of the glass frame. Then, suddenly, footsteps. Claire's voice from the hallway. "Eleanor, where's your bathroom again?" Eleanor turned, distracted. Just enough time. I pulled the USB out, pocketed it, and stepped away. My pulse was racing the whole drive home. When we got inside, Claire looked at me like she already knew. "You did something, didn't you?" I nodded. If what I think is in here, it's over for her. It took all night to go through the files. There were spreadsheets, payments to fake vendors, transfers to her brother's account, even emails where she told board members to bury complaints. But then I saw something else, something worse, a folder named Incidents. Inside were photos, people's homes, cars, even kids. Notes attached, uncooperative, delayed fees, problem family. And one of them was us. A photo of me standing on the porch, time-stamped weeks before the first violation notice, meaning she targeted us before we'd even done anything. But there was another file, one labeled Turner Final. I opened it. It wasn't about fines or payments. It was an email chain between Eleanor and someone named L. Barton. Eleanor, they're 2 months late. Proceed as planned. L. Barton, understood, will send the notice and coordinate with the buyer. Eleanor, make sure it's quick. The accident already made them weak. They'll fold. My stomach twisted. The Turners, the family Dennis told me about. Their child had been hit by a car the same week. They lost their house. It wasn't bad luck. It was planned. She'd use their tragedy to pressure them into selling. I sat there staring at the screen until Claire came over, her face pale. This woman, she's evil. I nodded, and she's still doing it. We backed up everything, hid copies on multiple drives. The next morning, I called Dennis. I have proof, I said, enough to bury her. He sounded cautious. Good, but be careful. If she finds out, she'll come after you hard. He was right. The next day, as I was leaving for work, a police car pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers stepped out. Mr. Reed, one asked, we've received a report about harassment and trespassing. Mind answering a few questions? My chest tightened. From who? They didn't have to answer. Eleanor was standing across the street, arms folded, smirking. She'd turned the tables again. The officers were polite but firm. They said she claimed I'd been spying on her property, taking photos, and making threats. I tried to explain, but they said there had been multiple complaints. Someone was building a file against me. After they left, I sat in my car, shaking. She knew. Somehow she knew. That night, Claire wanted to leave town. She said it wasn't worth it. But something inside me, something deep, refused to run. I told her, we can't let her do this to anyone else. If we don't stop her, she'll keep ruining lives. I decided to go to the local news station. I thought if I showed them the documents, they'd listen. But when I called, the reporter said, we've been told not to touch HOA stories involving Pine Meadows. Legal complications. Legal complications. That phrase again. It felt like the walls were closing in. Then one night, as I sat in the living room going to the files again, I heard a car outside. Headlights flashed through the blinds, then turned off. Footsteps on the porch. I grabbed my phone and quietly looked through the peephole. It was Eleanor, alone. She stood there for a moment, then slid an envelope under the door and walked away. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Stop now or you'll lose more than your house. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just protecting her money. She was hiding something far bigger. And the next morning, I found out what it was. When I opened my laptop, a new file appeared on the copied data, one that hadn't been there before. It was labeled HOA Land Acquisition, Lot 37. Lot 37 was my property. Inside were documents showing that months before we moved in, Eleanor had already signed a preliminary deal to sell my land to a developer under her name. She'd built her entire mansion partially over my lot line. I wasn't just a target. She'd been trying to erase me from a neighborhood because my land was hers in her mind. I never thought one letter could change everything. After months of silence, I received a brown envelope with no return address. Inside, there were copies of documents, HOA meeting minutes, bank transfers, and even fake maintenance bills signed by none other than Mark Harris. At first, I froze. My hands were shaking. Mark, the man who had ruined my peace, the man who called me a liar, had been stealing from every homeowner in our community, every single one of us. I stared at those papers for hours. My mind kept replaying every argument, every meeting where he made me look like a fool. Now, I finally had proof, but I didn't rush to expose him. I wanted to be sure. I started collecting more, talking to old HOA members, checking records, even visiting the city office for permit details. And slowly, everything connected like puzzle pieces. He had used HOA funds to pay for his personal construction projects, a new deck, landscaping, even his wife's boutique. And all this time, he called me the troublemaker. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the same house that almost felt cursed because of him. I looked around and whispered to myself, this isn't just about money anymore. This is about my peace. I called an old friend, Linda, who used to work for the HOA years ago. She sighed when I told her what I found and said, I warned them, but no one listened. Mark always had a way of covering his tracks. That's when we decided. It was time to make it public. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. So I gathered every document, every piece of evidence, and submitted it anonymously to the local news station and the state's HOA audit board. For a week, nothing happened. Then one morning, while drinking coffee, I saw it, a breaking news headline on TV. Local HOA president under investigation for embezzlement. Mark's photo flashed on screen. His perfect image shattered in seconds. I felt no joy, just relief. For the first time in years, I could breathe without that weight on my chest. But it wasn't over, because what came next was something I never expected. After the news broke, everything changed. The same neighbors who once avoided me now waved when they passed by. Some even came over to apologize, their faces filled with guilt and shame. I didn't blame them. Fear makes people blind, and Mark knew how to use that. The HOA called for an emergency meeting. This time, when I walked into that room, people didn't look away. They stood, they listened, and for the first time, I felt like my voice mattered again. Mark wasn't there. He had already resigned, and an investigation was underway. But his silence said more than his words ever did. I remember standing at that podium, the same place where I was humiliated months ago, and saying, all I wanted was fairness. Not power, not control. Just peace. The room was quiet. Some people cried. Others nodded. And I knew deep inside the storm was finally passing. Weeks went by, and life started to feel normal again. The HOA board was replaced, the stolen funds were traced, and homeowners began rebuilding trust with each other and with me. One evening, while sitting on my porch, I watched the sunset touch the rooftops of every home in our neighborhood. It looked calm again, like it used to before all the noise. Linda stopped by with coffee. She smiled and said, you did the right thing, even when no one believed you. I nodded and replied softly, sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything, but in the end, it gives you peace. That night, I walked through quiet streets, the same ones that once felt heavy with judgment. Now they felt lighter, free. And as I looked at my home, the one I fought so hard to protect, I whispered, it's over. Finally. But maybe it wasn't just about a house, or an HOA, or even justice. Maybe it was about finding the courage to stand alone until the truth stood with me.